Hello, we are Group 4. I am Colin.
I'm Alejandro.
I'm Sophia.
Alright, so question 1. If we had to describe the roles played by each member of our team, how would we describe them?
Go ahead.
So I would say for Alejandro is that he was really instrumental in organizing our document and getting our, everything into a cohesive thing that we could work off of, because going into the A Mountain Lab, the document provided to us was very disorganized and we couldn't really understand it. So he cleaned it up and made it that much easier for in the lab for us to just read off information, and when it came to writing the report, we could just really reference that, it made it really easy. That's all.
And in return, Colin here was quite helpful in making sure that the team stayed organized. There were several instances in which we'd get caught up in debate and trying to think of what a better solution would be, or how one fit the requirements more than the other, and we'd get lost in the thick of the weeds there for a bit, but then Colin would make sure to bring us back to task and say, okay, why don't we just use the AHP, why don't we just use the design criteria tables to make sure that we actually have a proper solution and get back on track to actually completing this, because we don't have that much time to just completely argue. So yeah, just making sure that we stayed on track and stayed on task.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Both of our teammates here, Colin and Alejandro, were very helpful in keeping the whole project organized, and it was also very helpful in the end when we came back to reflect on our project and when we created the lab write-up to look back on both the tables that Alejandro created and the fact that we had followed the engineering design process thanks to Colin. So it was nice to have all of that to reflect on as we went by step by step.
And just to add on, Sophia was very helpful when it came to actually constructing our lab, because she kind of took command of that and helped lead building each of the individual components. So on the 3-hour lab, it didn't feel like we wasted any time, so that was really good. All right, question 2. What were the primary sources of tension and conflict on our team, and how did we resolve them?
I guess primarily the largest point of tension were those sorts of arguments of disagreement, in which there were quite a lot of ideas being brought to the table, quite a lot of possible solutions, and at some points certain group members would be a little bit more passionate about their idea than those around them, and it may have seemed like they weren't willing to compromise. We had to try and maneuver a way around it in which we could provide a more alternative solution that might be more welcome to them, and also make sure that everybody's idea was included and it wasn't just one idea because they were very, very staunch about it. It was basically just a balancing act of making sure that we had an idea that fit everyone, and also making sure that that idea didn't just eliminate one person's passion.
Yeah, and so how we did that sort of consensus type approach to things is we did use the AHP tables and the decision matrices, which helped because obviously we didn't want to just shut down one of our group members, but we also didn't want to lead ourselves down a path that we didn't think was effective or efficient to follow. So the way we resolve those is by, yes, we listened to everyone's ideas, but then we got down to it and we did crunched the numbers on it, and we realized what as a group we thought was more important in a design.
I think going back to that, the tension also was because people were kind of jumping the gun on just jumping straight into ideas and everything like that. But as we have Colin here, he keeps us on track with following design process, so that not only includes the AHP and design matrix, but also including all of the problem statements and POV statements that really helped us stay on track with all of that. And it kind of did eliminate some of the arguments, because we would just say, hey, instead of arguing about this, let's just get back to what we need to finish first, and that'll help kind of determine in the long run if these ideas or thoughts about it will even work out.
All right, and question 3, identify one practice you will carry over to your permanent team and one practice you will not carry over.
I think for us, our consensus decision making along with the AHP and decision matrix have been really helpful in our labs and how we've come to the decision about what we're going to do for our final project for the lab and what we're going to follow through with. So I think that that's one practice that we can all agree on has been really helpful in keeping us on track with time and just meeting all of the requirements and criteria put forth by the problem statements and the POV statements and who our project is intended for.
One practice I know I'm going to try and carry over is just keeping that organized mindset, because it sounds like it was appreciated by the team. That's also important in a semester-long project like this, because getting behind at any point really tends to add up. So I think that will be useful in the long run when we're working on our final project.
One trait that I like to try and carry over is kind of like Colin said, the one that was accepted by the team, which is being able to try and consolidate information and make sure that it's presented in a more readable and understandable way and more efficient, rather than just kind of just having your data table and then just trying to make sense of it. But then also the experience that I may have with projects, I'm going to try and make sure that I bring the high school experience that I've obtained into these projects and make sure that I try and maintain a big picture in mind and not just think of the task before me and try to get stuck up in the weeds on it. Basically just re-merge that experience and make sure that I stay on top of things.
I know, like personally, there have been a few people that get caught up in the ideas of just like jumping straight to ideas that we can have for our project and everything like that. And I know that's something that I tend to do, but Colin keeps us on track and just kind of mentions like, hey, let's keep doing this. So while I'm not stubborn about it and I just like drop it and get back to what we're doing, I am going to try and fix this in the next project, so I try not to carry it over.
One practice I will try not to carry over is sometimes I can get a little passive aggressive if I think someone's like being disrespectful or not working towards the overall benefit of the group. And I think it is important to help someone realize if they're like having disruptive behavior in the group, but to do that in a positive, in a reinforcing way is more important than just, like I said, being passive aggressive about it. So that's something I want to improve upon myself.
And I think one practice that I really have to try and keep away is a sense of like procrastination, because there are several times in which, especially during college, where it can get a little bit harder to juggle all the different projects that you might have, not just on like a homework basis, but on like a week-long project basis. I may put priority over the wrong facets of it. So I'm going to try and make sure that I have a detailed outline of how each individual project ranks and how I should start basically acting them out over the course of weeks, months, making sure that I stay on top of it and I do give myself ample time to be able to finish projects and not just wait until the very last minute and not be able to produce quality work.
And that's our video.